horrific plane crash in southwest China is still unsolved tonight. The Boeing 737-800 jet went into a nosedive about an hour into the flight. It dove more than 7,000 feet, then regained about 1,000 feet, and then plummeted again. State media says none of the 132 people on board survived the crash, but the cause is not clear. Taylor Raines is with us tonight to go a little bit deeper on this. She's an aviation reporter on the business news desk at Insider. Taylor, there seems to be at this point no bodies, which is what you would expect at a wreckage site. What happened to the victims?
So, out of respect for the families and the deceased, I don't want to go into too much detail of what happened to the bodies, but in my experience studying aviation safety and air crashes, typically when a plane falls at the speed, velocity that it did, and from the altitude it was, the human body typically cannot handle the force of that. So when it crashes, it's very likely that the bodies are no longer with us, or they will not be set in the most easy way possible.
Understood. Okay, because I've also heard like the black boxes, they may not have made it. And it sounds like maybe it's just a fluke what sometimes you find a cup, but maybe a black box, a person doesn't make it. Okay.
Yes.
I know this is a really hard question, but are we getting any more indications that this might be intentional? Because at first, many experts said, no, this was not intentional, no way. Now others are contending, actually there's no way this went down this fast, 10,000 feet per minute without hands on the wheel.
So, like you said, it's impossible to say. It really is. But again, in my experience, planes don't typically crash when they're at cruising altitude. So this plane was pretty much at cruise at 29,000 feet, starting its initial descent. So things typically go wrong. If the plane's going to crash, it's going to happen on takeoff and in the final stages of landing. At that height, at cruise, it's very unusual. So for the plane to have crashed that fast, that quickly, and that abruptly, something must have happened that was either a catastrophic failure, an engine malfunction, a major flight control, like an aileron, a flap, an elevator, suddenly broke, or there could have been pilot intention, but it is impossible to say. And when you think about it, these pilots have families. So we have to be very careful not to tarnish their names before anything is for sure. It's just irresponsible to say that it was pilot error or pilot intention.
Understood. It can be hard to work with and get basic information from China on a whole range of issues. This is very sensitive, obviously. I know the NTSB has offered to help. Do you think we are going to be able to work with them to figure out, is this a broader problem?
When it comes to working with China, like you said, there are a lot of times when the information that is actually true doesn't necessarily make it to us. So when it comes to the investigation, Boeing will be involved in the investigation. That's part of it. Whoever the aircraft manufacturer is that crashed will be involved. As far as it looking at trends, I don't think the Boeing aircraft, the specific aircraft is the 737-800 NG, which stands for next generation. This plane is a very safe plane. I don't see any sweeping groundings across the U.S. I know that China Eastern has grounded this specific aircraft type as of now. Across the world, I don't see that happening. I don't see similarities to the MAX, because the MAX incident was a very separate issue, a separate system that does not exist on the NG.
Okay. So bottom line, you're saying if we have tickets coming up, and a lot of us do, it's a Boeing plane, many are, we should get on it and not worry. Because at the beginning, I'm just going to say, the 737 MAX, they said no broader issue, we don't need to ground these, and they really did need to ground them, and the government said the same thing. So should we be okay?
Yes. So I know it's going to sound weird, but what we call it in the industry is blood priority. A lot of things in history, in the safety world, while we like to be proactive, a lot of things that happen are reactive, and it's because things got to a breaking point that someone had to unfortunately die before a change is made. So with the MAX incident, it appears that blood priority should have maybe kicked in after the first crash, but you get into the safety culture of you don't want to say anything because you don't lose your job. So that's kind of what happened on the MAX side. With this, if it was a problem with the Boeing plane after the MAXes, it's pretty likely that Boeing is not going to mess around with that this time, you know? However, if it was a major mechanical malfunction, then that could have been at the fault of a mechanic in China. That could, if it comes out to be pilot error, that's a China Eastern pilot training or whatever issue. So those kind of changes would have to come internally from China Eastern, the Chinese Aviation Authority, and if Boeing has any recommendations to prevent it from happening in the future.
Taylor Rains, at a time when there are many unknowns, this is actually really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.